Crypto Talk with Brianna and Scott, where we are living the decentralized life. Join us for the latest crypto news, talk, and analysis. And now, here are J. Scott McMillan and Brianna Turk.
What's up, everybody? Crypto Talk with Brianna and Scott. Hey, Brianna, how's it going?
Hey, Scott, I am fantastic. We got some of our great friends in the chat. We have our friend Ryan in the chat already. Hey, Ryan. Hey, everybody. I'm great, Scott. To be honest, I am so refreshed. And I'm refreshed because I'm starting to dive into projects again. And it just brings me such a great feeling. Throughout that whole cold little bear market that we had, it was like big bear market. And I was diving so hard into regulation, and I love that aspect, all of that as well too. But this last month of diving into crypto projects, and it has been refreshing, very refreshing. How are you?
Good. Yeah, I'm doing good. And you're coming in nice and clear today. So we're good. The full moon must be aligned, or the blood moon, or whatever it was called. I'm doing good. I've been doing the same thing, diving deep into projects and creating videos, and just we're building here still in the bear market. Interesting. The stock market's in a bull market. Crypto's we're kind of just hanging out in our little sideways thing here. Like I said, I'm okay with that. Eventually, it's going to go up, and we'll be in good shape. So today, we're going to continue what we did last week, and we're each going to take a topic, and we're going to kind of dive deep. And if you guys have any questions or comments, let us know in the chat. If you're watching on replay, let us know what you think about the information that we're providing, and what you would like to hear, or we can talk about whatever in the space of crypto. So I'm gonna do something. For some reason, I've gotten a kick on the economy, learning the basics of economics again. I mentioned before that my path here was that my dad and my brother are bankers. So I come from a family of bankers, but I was the black sheep. I didn't go into banking. I got my degree in psychology, and then I ended up working in tech, and kind of just didn't pay attention to finances. And I woke up one day and said, "Oh my God, I'm behind in my retirement funds." And I kind of found crypto at the same time, and if I do this crypto thing right, I can catch up with my retirement. That's sort of my story. And Brianna and I have talked about this. It really sparked my interest in general finance and economics, because it all goes together, right? And so I started to really dive in there. And today I'm going to do a 4-part series that I pushed the first part out in my newsletter, and I have a video on my YouTube channel of basics of economics. And I'm using Ray Dalio's theme because I love Ray Dalio's stuff. So that's basically what I'm going to do, is just kind of introduce people to that again. And it just breaks down the economy into just really basic stuff. So it's a review for most people, because we heard it in high school and college probably, in Econ 101 or whatever. But if you're like me, or like most of us, we kind of forgot about it. We understand when they come on the news and they talk about the economy. We kind of understand on the big picture. But for me, there was a lot of these little things in between, these little minutia that I didn't really understand. So I kind of went back and through Ray's stuff, kind of really helped to understand that. So that's what I'm going to talk a little about today. But what are you going to talk about today? And then we'll just turn it over to you, and you can just dive into your part of the presentation.
Yeah, cool. That sounds really great, by the way, what you have prepared. I'm excited for that. And just for the record, I don't think I left high school knowing one single thing about the economy, but that's just for the record, or investing for that matter. But yeah, I'm going to talk about Worldcoin. And I know we've brought this up before in the past, and I just mentioned it in an article I think I brought forward a couple of months ago, and I just had every shield up around me when it comes to this project when I was reading into it, when I was reading into the founders. And I don't think I'm the only one. I think there's a lot of people who are still recovering from the lack of trust And I'm just going to share what I found when it comes to this project. I am not promoting this project. I am not promoting this project. I am really trying to focus on getting my own clear view before taking a lot more in from outsiders' perspectives. So I took a lot of this information that I put into this presentation that I'll share, and it's directly from the founders themselves. It was actually mostly from a conversation with them and the Bankless guys. There was a really great interview that I recommend if anybody wants to learn further. I'm also keeping in mind Ed Dowd, I think that's his name. Brian Rose interviewed Ed Dowd a couple of months ago, and he said one line in one of his interviews that has stuck with me. And it's follow what they do, not what they say. So I'm keeping that in mind with everything. Of course, I'm going to see what they're doing and saying, but I'm also seeing what they do. So that's with every project. But yeah, let's dive in. We'll jump over to my screen here. And let me know when we are up.
All right. We are ready. We can see it.
Okay. Worldcoin. Let's get into it. Okay, so their mission, Worldcoin's mission is to launch a token to all of humanity. So the goal is to have this accessible to every person on the planet. And the goal is to prove humanness. We're going to get into what that means. Because we are now entering an age where we have to be proven to be human. Mm-hmm. Okay, so over on the left is Alex, I'm probably not going to say it right, Alex Blania. He's the CEO and co-founder. And over on the right is Sam Altman, probably looks familiar, or the name may sound familiar. He's the co-founder as well. He's the founder, Sam Altman is the founder of OpenAI, ChatGPT. And then they both together are in Tools for Humanity, is Worldcoin's lead development company. So as I was going through, I'm just going to walk you through as I was doing my digging. Then I looked up the Tools for Humanity to learn more about that, and I just wanted to see what their website was. So this is what their website looks like, very simple. This is exactly what the website is for Tools for Humanity. It's a technology company built to ensure a more just economic system. Super simple. That's pretty much the extent of their website. Okay, so Worldcoin has 3 elements to it. The Worldcoin token, that's their symbol on the bottom left of the screen. The Worldcoin app, which goes on your phone. And then the Worldcoin orb. Have you heard about the orb yet, Scott?
Oh yeah, the orb, the magic orb. What I really want to know though is how big it is, because I've only seen it in pictures. I don't know if it's like, how big it is. But I think it's like bigger than a softball is what I'm thinking.
I think so too. And there'll be a picture of someone looking into one, so you'll get a little bit of a perspective. But there might be different sizes too. I don't know, because
maybe
apparently there's the representatives and the people who start jumping on board with Worldcoin. I learned in this interview that they will just whip these orbs out and set it on the table at events and things. They're like very proud of the orb, so it can't be too big. Okay, so this is how it works. So a user, if they were interested in Worldcoin, they download the app, which is the World app, and then they would click on a map and see where the closest orb is. And then you show up to the device, you click Verify Now, and then you generate, when you click that, you're generating a key pair, 2 separate key pairs. So one is the Ethereum wallet, the other is in your identity wallet that lives on your phone. So once you verify, you show that public identity on your app to the device, and it gets air-gapped via camera to the device. The orb does the humanness check and the unique check, which images the eye, then signs that, and it is the only thing that leaves that device. This goes to a backend, which will later be decentralized. It's currently not decentralized, but the goal is for that to be decentralized within the next 10 years. There's also a uniqueness check that happens. So when a user uses World ID, the user uses proof of inclusion, zero knowledge, and you can use that proof now across many different ecosystems, not only Ethereum, but all chains. But not only that, also in Web 2 to log in wherever you want without revealing any of your personal information. The Worldcoin claims that they do not ask for your name, date of birth, address, or anything, and that the only place that you would be required to do the KYC would be when you're onboarding onto any type of like centralized exchange, whether you're going to get your Worldcoin from there, however that would require KYC, but not directly from Worldcoin itself.
Yeah, I think interestingly there is that they want to use it, or apparently right now, as a connection to Web 2 stuff, like it said, right? So it's like a login also. It can, so I guess theoretically this could just be like, your digital ID for everything, Web 3, Web 2, where you have to log in, you can use this apparently. And, I have mixed emotions about that because it's like, well, that's convenient and everything, but now everything's connected to this. And I've heard this as one of the Web 3 kind of proponents, right? That Web 3 is going to usher in this sort of single ID, and it makes it sound like, oh, that's really convenient. But on the other side, what does that really mean? So, yeah. Yeah,
my thoughts exactly. I'm right there with you. So what Worldcoin solves is civil resistance. This is what they're, in their words, civil resistance. I hadn't heard this term, but apparently it's a pretty well distributed term in the crypto industry, and there's many people trying to tackle this. So civil resistance, so that one human is able to verify to the network that human is unique to a network. And why this is important is that bad actors could destroy the whole distribution of the incentive and the token and everything with the humanness. And this goes a little bit further here. So you could do, if you wanted to solve that civil resistance problem, when they were trying to come up with how they were going to tackle this, they came up with 3 things that you could do if you zoom out. So the first was KYC, which fell through as an option, I'm sure for multiple reasons, but because less than 50% of the world have documents that could prove their identity. I think amongst other things, I think that if they did KYC, then that would be just a really bad move, but in my view. But second would be building a web of trust. And that's building a reputation graph that never worked, which at this time never worked or scaled, but it is something that could come later to Worldcoin in the future. I don't exactly know what that means. I have questions surrounding what that means. Third would be biometrics, which is where they were trying to decide. It could be the face, it could be fingerprints, it could be the palm. The palm does not have enough entropy. None of those actually have enough entropy, meaning it does not have enough unique proof from a phone camera to identify that. So that's where the iris is the only thing, the single thing that they know that could truly have enough entropy to identify that person to be unique to themselves. Okay, so here's the orb. This kind of gives you an idea. I think you're right. It is bigger than a softball, smaller than a bowling ball.
Yeah, it looks like a volleyball.
Yeah, it does.
Pretty big.
And many sensors to make sure it is a human being, not a display or an AI. That's what's inside of this. Many sensors. They actually had to get it developed and engineered. There was nothing that was this advanced that existed. And so the technology within this orb is like super advanced. They had to start from the ground up and get a whole team to build this. So it looks at a human being, then the eye is imaged, the unique iris code gets calculated on the device, it gets signed by the device, and then that is the only thing that leaves the device. The uniqueness check is separate from the user's wallet by zero knowledge proof. I know I pointed that out earlier, but it says the only thing that can be proved on this orb is that the user is verified, yes or no. And this is Alex, one of the co-founders. What he stated here, two things. He says the engineering aligns with the values of the space, though it sounds counterintuitive due to the use of biometrics. And then also points out that the world is about to change in a meaningful way. Neither digital content, image or video, as well, intelligence can discriminate as to whether it is a human. So what this serves as is the bridge to the real world, is the orb. That's the bridge to the real world. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, I don't understand that, but we can talk about it after.
Okay, do you want to wait till the end or pause on that part?
Let's wait to the end.
Okay. So currently what they're giving out is $50 in Worldcoin to sign up for a World ID. Now this is a picture in Kenya. And in Kenya, they actually paused or halted or stopped 2 days ago, I believe, 3 days ago. They just paused this whole operation because this is what the lines looked like. And people were coming in from all over to try to get their $50 in Worldcoin. And there are questions surrounding the storage of and just the security, the privacy behind this all. And so they just decided to stop this operation in Kenya for now. But there's people lining up from all over the world just to claim this $50. And then once you get that Worldcoin, you can exchange it to whatever you want. You can get it back into your bank account or however you want to do, just like any other crypto once it's in your wallet. So they say that this is how it aligns with the current views on what crypto should be. So privacy preserving, open sourced code, and decentralized in the next 10 years. They don't point out the specific points as to why it can't be decentralized right now, but there's just little regulations and things to get around. I think when it comes to the orb is what I got from it. That's kind of an assumption. That's what I was taking from it, that make it difficult to have it decentralized. And this is their website. I think this is the last slide. For Worldcoin, and it just says it's for every human. This top number right here, where it says 2 million unique humans on Worldcoin, this number is just like goes up and up and up and up. You just watch it on their website going up and up, and it's kind of little, but over here the World ID. So yeah, over 2 million people have signed up. There are 34 countries currently where orb verifications have happened. The countries with verified World ID users are 120. And then it goes over the daily wallet transactions, some of the activity. It says here the 2,000 orbs manufactured. So in the future, anybody is going to be able to manufacture this orb and operate it. And then, so say that I wanted to operate an orb, I would be able to get incentives, almost like an affiliate program, for every user that I sign up for Worldcoin. So it's crazy. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of the gist of it.
What do you, so to summarize, what do you like about it?
Okay. I don't know that I like this at all. And I think the reason why I don't like it is the reason why I'm hesitant is I think it's just the world that we're entering that I'm hesitant about. The idea of having this whole huge issue when it comes to verifying what's real and what's not real on the internet. However, my whole world doesn't revolve around the internet, so I'm not as concerned as some people. I think what I like about this is I am thinking ahead about what we're going to have here to use the internet. We all have heard that there are big ideas that we will all need a digital ID, and that we'll need to be able to have that to access the internet and use the internet, and that would all be tracked. So from the way that this is portrayed, from what they're saying to me, what I like about this is not backed by KYC. So this sounds like it would be keeping you anonymous as to what you're doing on the internet, where my understanding with what was going to happen with the digital IDs is that every move you make was going to be tracked and limited, potentially limited. And like if you were not cooperating in a certain sense, or there was something that wasn't in alignment with something that like censorship wise type stuff, that you would just get blocked altogether. So to me, this could be a way around that. If we all are going to have to face the option of having to have an ID to use the internet, like we can't just use it freely. If that's what we have to do, then this sounds like this would be a way to do that with still keeping the privacy versus being controlled. And that's just what I'm taking from it. I definitely had a little bit of a more open mind after listening to this Bankless interview. As I said, I'm not forming an opinion on it right now. This could go very wrong, and it still requires trust. So, I know that in the interview, they say to go read their code. I'm not a code reader. That would do nothing for me. So for me, that still requires a level of trust. So there's just still a lot of questions. This answered some questions, but there's still a lot of questions. And I think, I don't know. What are your thoughts after going through all of that?
Yeah, I think it is so new, and I'm glad that people are throwing this kind of stuff out there and making it public and open source. And I'm glad we're aware of this, which I think in its early stage. But I think, I think this is like a something for way down the road. And it's funny, they said it might take 10 years for them to get decentralized. I'm not sure what that means, but I would see, it'd be 10 years before this thing would really come into play. Maybe 5, who knows how fast things work, but definitely down the road. But so I think it's good. One of the things that AI taught me, that ChatGPT and this whole phenomena, that it wasn't until ChatGPT got kind of dropped in there and it was very easy to access, that it seems like the world just woke up, like literally overnight. Like, oh my gosh, look what's happening. Look at this technology. Look what it can do. And even though it's kind of like a parlor trick, it's not, it just looks cool. It is extremely flashy right off the bat. But if you get serious about using it, then you realize, oh, it's just like a tool like any other thing. I got to learn how to use this and learn how to prompt and learn what to do with this thing. And so for a lot of people, I think they tried ChatGPT or whatever, and it's like, oh, that's cool. But when they tried to integrate it into their life, it's like, oh, this is too much work, and you just don't use it anymore. But what I liked about that concept was that there had been people working on AI let me get back to up both of this. There had been people working on AI for years and years and years, 10 plus years, 20 years, right? But we never heard about it. We're like, hey, you would hear little snippets like, we're working on this in the background, we're working on this, but the average person had no clue, right? And then all of a sudden ChatGPT drops, and now all the gurus in the AI are like, well, that's no big deal. It's like, we've been working on this for years. It's like, we're way more advanced than this. And that just opened my eyes. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know if this was good or bad, the way this happened. But from now on, I think it's better to let the public know what's really going on. Show us examples. You don't have to tell us everything. But it was like all this was just going on in the background. Nobody really knew. Now the cat's out of the bag. We know what's going on for the most part. And all we can assume is that what we don't know about AI now is way more advanced than what we're seeing, which is pretty scary, but also pretty amazing, right? That's this thing about all this AI and is that it's amazing and scary at the same time. So when I look at something like this, Worldcoin and the orb and everything, I sort of feel like it's the same thing, right? And it comes from the same guy, Sam Altman, who, is kind of blowing us away with these new things. But what I like about this is it's like, okay, we're just going to kind of throw this out here. It may not be ready for prime time. In fact, there's really nothing you can do with it. Like right now, I mean, yeah, you can get your Worldcoin, but it's just a crypto coin like any other coin. And what can you do with it now? What's connected to it? Why even have it? Well, that's okay, because I like the fact that at least we know about it. We're getting some information, and it's going to evolve, and hopefully we can track that along the way. So I think that, like, oh, this is cool, but like, so what? What the hell can you do with this thing right now? So that's one point. The other cool part that we talked about in there was the zero proof knowledge stuff. This is another really cool area of crypto that is pretty new, right? We know that there are new blockchains like ZK Sync and Layer 0, and some of these other zero proof knowledge blockchains and layers, if you will, are starting to roll out. And the cool thing about that is what we're now learning probably more about zero knowledge proofs in this Worldcoin presentation than most people actually know about zero proof knowledge. And the geeks are talking about it, like the techie people are really talking about it, but it's like for the average person, we don't really understand what that means. But as you alluded to, the essence, the way I understand it, is that the essence of this zero proof knowledge, which is this technology layer they're going to start layering into all crypto chains, or at least on the Ethereum network for now, is the fact that you don't have to KYC, that everything can be proved without all this personal knowledge, right? And I watched that same podcast on the bank list, and they talk a little bit about that, where basically, if you have, so if you're going to go into a bar and you get carded, right, and you give your ID, you have to give your whole ID to them. Well, they now know, they know everything about you. They know where you live, they know your age, they know your car color, they know your eye color. They don't need to know that. They just need to know, are you old enough to get in here? But they have all the information, right? So zero proof knowledge is kind of like that. It only gives you the information that you need to make that decision. Yes or no. Can I get in or not? But none of the other information is displayed or, passed on. So that's I think, a basic idea of what zero proof knowledge is, but it's really cool. It sort of alleviates this whole KYC thing. Now, I don't know where that's going to be or how long it's going to be before that truly hits like our wallets or whatever, so that we can connect into an exchange or whatever with no KYC, but still have the proof that whatever governments or whatever people need to have. So I think there's also a lot more technology, but it's rolling out. Like ZK proofs and ZK knowledge is rolling out. I don't know exactly where it stands, but it's interesting because now the orb takes it one step further. So you've got this eye scan that is like totally unique to that person, and nothing else needs to be sent, to whatever I'm trying to log into or connect to. It's just, do I pass or not? Am I a unique human or not? Now, you can probably attach a lot of stuff to that. So depending on what you're going to do, it's like, okay, do you have a valid wallet? Is it, let's say you I don't know if this is good or bad, but let's say that you're trying to apply or get into an exclusive club or something, right? Well, maybe they need to verify what country you're from, or verify what, maybe you need to have $10,000 of crypto in your wallet, to access this. I mean, something like that. So this would allow that, Is this going to be the thing, like there's been a lot of talk about the Web3 wallet, like a MetaMask wallet, like we know in crypto, that's going to now be your ID for everything. Everything, getting into physical clubs or whatever, also on the internet and off the internet. And that's kind of a cool thing. But now, could this orb be the thing? Could we, all be scanned with this orb and then have it tied to our digital wallet or whatever? So I think it's interesting. I'm actually more open to it than a lot of people. Having my iris scanned, and then I don't really have a problem with it. The way I look at it now, everything about us is already uploaded into the internet. It's all out there. There's nothing that the web doesn't know about us. So that's where I live. It's just, that's how I feel. It's just like, I'm not afraid to like go all into the internet because, I mean, let's put it this way. The people that are really scared about this, and I know there's lots of them, about identity and all that going into it, you can do a lot of work and try to protect yourself. But the question is, for me, I'm just like, it's too much work. It's like, I'm not going to go, do 10,000 VPNs and, have all this security and do all these things to protect myself because I'm just one little dot in the middle of a sea of people that are out there. So I'm kind of using that anonymousness to kind of protect myself. Doesn't mean that I won't get hacked. Doesn't mean that I won't, but I already know that all of my information is out there because I've bought into, Facebook and YouTube and everything. So I'm not as worried about this. It's just a next evolution of it. Could it get dystopian? Yeah, I suppose it could. But so that's what I think. Yeah, that's good stuff. I was really curious about this, so I like it. Good job.
Still have more to learn. And maybe I'll bring forth more to it over here in our chat. Patia put trust but verify. Also see the writings on this topic from Vitalik Buterin and his concerns. I'm really glad you pointed that out because that is something that I saw and I have not read and I forgot all about it. So I want to take the time to read that. Also, no HIPAA, no ethics, no regulations. Sam Altman Company Tools for Humanity is not a USA company. I wish we had you up here, Petia. I'd like to hear more of your thoughts on this. Privacy is important for freedom of the individual. Web3 and blockchain is privacy driven. Yeah, so is it even necessary, I guess? Like, is this necessary? There's so many ways to look at this because I can look at it from the developer standpoint. And that's what I think that I don't know. I could be off. These guys might have some kind of agenda behind it. But I look at from just a developer standpoint. A lot of developers out here, you're looking for a problem to solve. You're looking for how are you gonna, you're putting your imagination to work. So I try to put myself in that a little bit too when I was listening to these guys. Like you're like, oh, how can I solve this problem, do this thing? And you come up with this grand vision and I'm talking about any project. You come up with this vision and you go through it and you are just ride or die for it. But there may be a lot of things that could happen with this where it could be taken and used for other people's agendas. That's kind of the worry, I guess, that I see out there when it comes to this one too.
Yeah, I'm glad that, we have these discussions and really glad, Petia, that you chimed in because it's just good to have these discussions and put it all out there. One thing we didn't mention here really is that, this whole thing about universal basic income. One of the first thing I heard about this was that's what their goal is that they wanted this orb to distinguish between robots and humans, right? And so that's a big thing. We didn't really talk about that yet, but that's to me like why you have an orb versus other things like a hand or whatever. And what their long-term goal is once AI takes over everybody's job, then we're just going to have universal basic income. Everybody's just going to get some money because we're not working because the AI takes over everything. So you need to qualify that you're a human so you can get the universal basic income. So good point, Petia. I'm not sure what I mean. What you mean by if the orb is a medical device. Is it FDA approved? I don't know. Explain that. Why would it be a medical device? I'm not sure I understand that, but and my guess is they certainly didn't qualify it for that. Maybe the FBI will get involved now, but what else did you say, Petia? ChatGPT is high risk. Yeah. Here, let me put that up too. We'll talk about that. He went asking about the regulations in Europe where ChatGPT is high risk. He told us that he cannot comply. He'll pull out ChatGPT from there. And again, I don't know where ChatGPT would be high risk. It is what it is. It hallucinates, but and we have heard of stories of it convincing people to do things. Again, I'm pretty open to this. To me, this happens on the internet all the time. People go into chat rooms and convince people to do things. People wouldn't do things if they weren't a little off in the first place. So this is just another iteration. Again, people, they really get mad about the internet and all the bad things that can happen on there. If the bad things happen anyways, whatever the internet has is going to mimic what humanity has in downtown streets or wherever. This is just another iteration of that. To me, the scary part is, what will the AI do on its own eventually? Not that it can convince people to do stuff, because people can be convinced to do anything pretty darn easy. But what's it going to do on its own? And I know, a lot of us have met here together on London Real through Brian Rose's awesome, YouTube channel and his courses. And he's talking about that a lot, and has super, super great guests on there talking about what AI can do bad and, what it can do good. So yeah, cool stuff. Well, yeah, good conversation. So you said biometrics. Yeah. Biometrics taking should be regulated. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. They regulate devices. So it'll be interesting to see. I haven't heard anything about the FDA now that they are aware of this. Maybe they'll chime in. Good point.
Gosh, but do we trust that? I mean, here's the funny thing about that too. And not that it shouldn't be regulated, but when you, to me, when I see something's not regulated by the FDA, and I'm talking about like herbs or something like that, I'm like, okay, it's probably good for me. Like, that's how I see things. The FDA doesn't, I don't know. And I'll just leave it with this. Here's my last thought on this for this one. We'll talk about this more in the future for sure. But I think that my hope is that this will start bringing people to the idea that, yes, there's going to be a lot of propaganda and a lot of things that are not real on the internet. This is now available for many people to do versus one streamline of information, which is what we've been fed for a very long time when it comes to propaganda through countries. One streamline of that. And my hope is that people will stop looking so far externally for answers. And it will start bringing people into finding, this is the whole personal development side of things, the truth within themselves for everything that they need, and use the internet for a tool for the things to create and build with, and not as this whole thing of trying to find the truth, because it's like a needle in a haystack. You're just going to keep digging and digging for the truth on the internet. It's going to be really hard to find it. So I don't know. That's my hope with this all.
Yeah. And where's the truth? Where's the truth? This is a softball question, Miss Personal.
Oh, are you asking me? Well, that comes from each of us. Each of us, we all hold our own truth. That's all that it, that's what it comes down to.
Brianna's written a great book about this, and has a course out there. So, and this is what is really cool. Brianna really looks into this sort of, she's very technological forward and looks into crypto and AI and all this stuff, but it, tries to integrate it into our personal lives. And that's what I like about that. So good point. Well, we'll end on that. That's cool. All right. Boy, that was good. Good discussion. I almost want to stay on that kind of stuff. My stuff's kind of boring and dry, and I'm not sure how I'm going to present this, but let's see if I can get my laptop up here. There's my little avatar. Hi, buddy. Oh, there he goes. Okay, so I on my newsletter, Crypto for the Rest of Us, and on my I have a 4-part series that I'm doing, and it is on the economy. It is economy basics based on Ray Dalio's concepts, although they're universal concepts. And I really wanted for me, it was important to really understand what the economy's doing, what the Fed's doing, what the stock market's doing, all this stuff that I didn't really pay attention to, so I know how to invest wisely in crypto, or how to be safe in crypto. And so I just thought I'd put together this little project. So here's phase 1 or part 1 of this. Now I tried to get this into like a slideshow, but this is the part of the video that I had. So I'm just going to kind of run this and kind of talk about it. But I was just like, it's the economy, stupid, because I just loved that line, and this was from James Carville, who was Bill Clinton's presidential campaign advisor, and it's like everything's about the economy, and so that's what I wanted to look at. So I think it's important to understand basic economics. So here I basically just want to talk about what are some basics, and then what's the economy doing now, and then what can we look to in the future. So by the way, this program was created by a program called Pictory, which I'm really in love with, because you basically just generate a script, you dump the script in, it finds all the videos for you, puts all the captions in there, we'll put the voiceover, we'll put the music, the whole 9 yards. I use it partly for mostly the images, but again, this is just, I feel it's important to understand this. So, but it's funny, so I said, let's dive in, and then this is a picture of a person diving into the ocean, which didn't really make much sense, but I thought it was interesting. So my story, my dad was a banker, and so I didn't pay attention to any of that. And so it's so ironic that I kind of come into finance through crypto and through technology. And like I said, I have a degree in psychology, and then I ended up working in tech. So I had nothing to do with banking, but now I find it really interesting to look into this. And I didn't know enough. I knew enough to put money in my 401k, but not enough to know I should have put a lot more for a lot longer, and I'd be set right now. Right now, I'm trying to use crypto to catch up, and it's important. But I want to do it the smart way, the safe way. I'm not a go to the moon kind of guy, and that's why I do want to understand the economy and finance. I don't want to just wing this stuff. But like most people that get into crypto, I started with Bitcoin, right? I'm like, hey, I'm going to go to the moon. Let's do this crypto thing. And I just realized, over time, it's like, it's just a market. Crypto's a market like any other market. So you really have to understand how markets work and how it's influenced by the economy. And this debt basically has created these boom and bust cycles. And I think it's just truly interesting to go back and look like, what is credit? What is debt? And it's debt and credit that really move the economy, but it's also what makes it crash too. So Changing World Order and Principles of Navigating Big Debt Crisis is 2 books from Ray Dalio I recommend. But he simply says that an economy is the sum of all transactions. And it's basically, you've got money in credit and money in fiat money. And he simplifies it down to 3 areas: productivity, growth, short-term debt cycle, and long-term debt cycle. This is what an economy consists of. Short-term is 5 to 8 years. And long-term is 50 to 100 years. Start that back up again. But it's the combination of these short-term cycles that just go over and over and over, and long-term cycles. And a transaction is just between a buyer and a seller. And if you just add up all the spending of all the markets, because you've got car markets, you got grain markets, you got all markets. That's how you can tell here what the economy is. So the central bank plays a huge role in controlling the whole money flow. And it does this by influencing interest rates and printing new money. So again, most people kind of understand this, but there's this deeper level. Money is pretty simple concept, but it's credit that really booms these economies. Money settles transactions, and credit is basically, you promise to repay. But as the economy goes up and down, what if you can't repay? And these bubbles just get big, 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 and then they boom. And so we go into these expansions and contractions. So again, you've got lenders and borrowers, just like buyers and sellers, so different, credit markets. Lenders always want to turn their money into more money, right? And buyers, they just want to buy something that they can't afford. I mean, it sounds weird, but that's just how we all know things, right? So we go borrow money. If we could afford it, we wouldn't need to borrow. So credit helps both parties get what they want, right? Because when the banks get the money from the loans, they go out and loan it and invest it. So of course we all know, the loan is based on principal and interest, and you've got to pay that back. And when interest rates are high, there's less borrowing. So again, pretty basic stuff. When interest rates are low, borrowing increases. We're seeing this right now with what the Fed's doing. So when borrowers promise to repay, the lenders believe them, then credit is created. And credit is interesting because it goes by different names. And you've got the credit, but as soon as it's made, then it immediately turns into debt. right? So debt is both an asset to the lender, but it's also a liability to the borrower. So some of this minutia of this, but it just trying to get, what is my oh, I forgot to plug my PC into my power. That's probably why it's going dead. So we get this loan, and then you've got to pay back the principal and the interest. And when that happens, then this transaction is settled. It disappears. So why is credit so important? Well, because when the borrower receives this credit, they're able to increase their spending. This is the essence of what economies. It's like credit creates all this spending, and spending is what drives these economies, right? And I love this because one person's spending is another person's income. He says this over and over, which I love. When income rises, then lenders want to lend more money, and it just becomes this perpetual cycle. So a creditworthy borrower has two things, right? He's got income, so he has now the ability to repay, but he's also got collateral. He's making good money, so he can put up his house. If he can't pay, then the house goes to the bank. So if you've got a lot of income, then you're going to be able to get more loans. But in the event that you can't pay, they can then give up the house, right? So we saw this in 2008, where a lot of people had to forfeit their houses. So it looks good for them to lend. So increased income always allows increased borrowing, which allows increased spending, and on and on and on. I was just looking what Petya is saying here. It's like macro trading is good trading. Yeah. So all this self-reinforcing pattern, it just leads to economic growth, but we've got cycles. And we just live through these cycles. And sometimes we don't even notice it because it's right in our face. But obviously all this spending creates inflation. And to combat inflation, the central bank, the Fed, well, they raise interest rates. We're living that right now, right? We're living to see what happens when this happens. So in a lot of people's life, they haven't lived through this, but we're living through it right now. This cycle of expansion, contraction, again, driven by central bank policies. And this recurs about every 5 years, this short-term debt cycle. So you make $100,000, let's say somebody makes $100,000. And you have no debt. You can now borrow $10,000. That's simple. And so let's say you just put that on a credit card. Put $10,000 on a credit card. This allows you to spend $110,000, even though you only make $100,000, right? I know this is simple, but this is just going to get these points out there because it helps me anyways to just solidify this in my mind. So now the person who is earning the $110,000 with no debt, he can borrow $11,000. And so he can spend $121,000 even though they only earn $110,000. So it's this pattern, and it just goes up and up and up like that, and it gets bigger and bigger until the bubble. So these borrowing cycles, they go up and they come down. This is the basic of what Ray Dalio is basically saying. Just pay attention to these cycles. So this is the short-term debt cycle over and over and over again for decades. We see the expansion, which is the first phase of the short-term debt cycle. Now we're going to go into the bad stuff. Well, not yet. Spending continues. Prices start to rise, increasing the spending, fueled by credit. And this credit is created out of thin air. That's the other cool thing. It's like credit is just money created out of thin air, but it runs our economy. Prices start to rise faster now because everything is heating up. Economy's heating up, more spending, more raises, more income. But then that causes inflation. And this is kind of a repeat, but then the central bank's like, whoop, nope, we're going to raise interest rates. We got to hold this down. We can't let inflation get too high. With higher interest rates, now fewer people can afford to borrow, and the cost of their existing debts cost them more, right? So they rise. So now you've got to pay more money on your existing debts. So it slows everything down. So your monthly mortgage, your credit card payments, they're going up. So now more of your income has to go, into that mechanism to pay off those debts. Okay, catch up. Okay, so now people are borrowing less. They have higher debt. They got less money to spend, and one person's spending is another person's income. So income drops, and so on and so on. People spend less, prices go down, and we call this deflation. So economic activity decreases and the economy moves into a recession. And we're right on the cusp of this right now. Some people say we're there. Some people say we're not quite there. Now, if a recession becomes too severe, but and inflation is no longer there, the central bank will stop raising them. And that's where we are right now, right? We're not really sure where we are, right? And so the central bank is raised, and then they paused, and they raised again. So this is all just a machine. And this is how, you kind of back up and look at it like this. You sort of, when you're in the middle of it and you just got your house foreclosed, you're like, what the hell? And you're pissed at everybody. But this is the cycle. It's the way goes for years and years and years, and will continue to go in the future. And the scary part is we're right now on this precipice of living this 100-year long-term debt cycle. And that's the next iteration of this. Next time I'm going to be talking about the long-term debt cycle. And that's the scary part, because at the end of the long-term debt cycle is war, is regime change, is complete differences. So this last part is basically saying, well, why do we care about this? Well, crypto's a market just like any other market. Crypto is an asset just like any other asset. We clearly understand that crypto and Bitcoin move up based on what the Fed's doing, what the stock market's doing. Interestingly, right now, we're seeing that the stock market's going high, but crypto's going sideways. Well, that's because the Fed hasn't decided what they want to do. The economy hasn't decided what it wants to do. It's sitting here, half of the indicators are saying that we're in a recession. Half of the indicators are saying that we're not. Jobs seem to be looking pretty good. But then there's other data that we're seeing right now that says it might slow down pretty quickly, and maybe next month or next quarter, jobs aren't going to be looking so good. So right now, it's really confusing. And I think it helps to kind of just go over again, these cycles that come over and over. And then you have these big events like what happened in 2008. And that was really part of a short-term debt cycle that just got really out of hand, because there was so much lending, so much crazy assets that were created, and derivatives and all these different things that were created based on housing and mortgage rates. And the financial Wall Street was creating all these weird, assets that people could invest in based on mortgages. And when the housing market dropped in 2007 and 8, boom, it burst the bubble of all this, Wall Street finance stuff. And it was a huge catastrophe. I don't know if people realize how close the world came to absolute financial disaster, much bigger than the Depression, era. And so, but from that, and I'm kind of rambling now, but from that, we had this policy where the Federal Reserve and the Fed stepped in and had to backstop the whole thing with a lot of money, printed a lot of money, injected a lot of money into the into the economy. They had to do it. I'm glad they did it. But here's the key, and ultimately I'm skipping ahead, but just FYI, here's the whole crux from my point of view. What the Fed did wrong was they kept interest rates at zero way too long after 2009. They saved the day, they righted the ship, but after that, they should have let interest rates naturally rise again, and they kept them artificially low. And it's why we're in the problem we are now. Because when inflation was bound to happen, especially after the pandemic, when they, again, had to come in and save the day. But then inflation popped, and right now we're seeing what happens when you raise interest rates so fast, faster than they've ever done before, to curb inflation. And so right now we're in this craziness because the Fed is trying to govern this. And so there's theories out there that say, we should have never created a Fed. The Fed should never have this much power. We should just let the natural occurrences of the economy and the free market kind of dictate how things go, instead of the Fed artificially coming in and doing all this. It did save the day in certain cases, but after 2008, people loved the fact that the stock market was going up and interest rates were zero. And from what you saw in that presentation, you can see when interest rates are low, it just drives this whole economy, and the bubble just starts getting bigger and bigger. And it's it's like cocaine, right? It's like people are all high. We're all high just living off this credit. But something's going to burst it. And so if you do too long, it's going to burst. And so we're just living with that now. I think we're in the most interesting time in our economy in a long, long time because the Fed has been meddling for so long. And the debt grows. We're going to be paying $1 trillion on our debt payment, on just our debt alone. We're going to have to fund $1 trillion in debt repayments just on the interest of the country's debt. I mean, the question I have is, how long is this sustainable? And this is the reason, this kind of comes all back to crypto. If this sucker is going to blow, then I want to be in some sort of asset that isn't tied to that. So even though the market fluctuates, crypto market fluctuates based on what the other markets are doing, if all hell breaks loose, at least Bitcoin is not directly tied to that fiat dollar, right? And if the fiat dollar goes to zero or if the economy blows up or whatever. Now, the question I have, actually, I really have this question. I really don't know this, and maybe somebody listening does or has heard the theory. But let's say the economy, let's say the U.S. economy blows up, the Western economy just blows up, and now dollars aren't even worth anything, right? And I mean, we're all in a big trouble, right? This is catastrophic. This is Armageddon, whatever. If this happens, I mean, it's going to be really, really bad. But if I've got some Bitcoin, the question is, you can't turn that into fiat or anything to use it because it's worthless. So people need to then accept Bitcoin as legal tender or a tender so that I can get my gas or heat my house or feed my face, right? The question is, what if we go to war and nuclear bombs start flowing? Well, Bitcoin's not going to be very good if all the servers are. I'm not saying that Bitcoin can never go down completely, but how am I going to get my phone to work, to get my wallet out so I can pay for something? So I don't think, nothing's perfect right now, but just reel it back in. Right now, I sleep good at night knowing that I've got some money in crypto, got some money in Bitcoin, because it's outside of the system. And so I think just to leave it, it's like the key for me is to diversify in a lot of different things. Of course, I'm not getting rid of my fiat. I'm still in the stock market. I still got my 401k, but I'm putting more and more into Bitcoin, into crypto, because it's an alternative now. It's an alternative that we've never had before, but now we have it. Makes sense. Why wouldn't you want to have an alternative, right? Even if it's just a little bit to start with. So I'll kind of leave it on that. But I get fired up because this is why I want to study the economy, because I realize it's just a cycle, and it's happened over and over. But about every 100 years, big things happen. There's a little country called China that just waiting for us to falter and be the next cycle, because it used to be the Dutch, it used to be the English, years and years, hundreds of years ago, that were the dominant king. You can only stay on top for so long. Is that next year? Is that 5 years? Is it 20 years? Is it 50 years? I don't know. But I'm glad crypto is here. So let's see. Petya's been chiming in here. What do you got, Petya? And while we're doing that, what do you got to say, Brianna?
Yeah.
Well,
I had a couple things that came to mind with that. I mean, so I follow the Economic Ninja, and he always says, I don't know if you've seen his stuff, but he talks about getting out of debt and how this is the way to remove the control from the central banks. Like, just get out of debt. So, which we know that's not going to happen, but that's just what is encouraged, that is what is creating the dependence, and that's what's creating their control over us and their ability to grow. And so the way you just portrayed that presentation, it shows how that happens. And then what Petya said I bet with CBDC spending, or spending will be encouraged with CBDCs. Absolutely, I agree. And that is, we've heard with the CBDCs that will be, you will get the universal basic income, $2,000 a month, and that income will expire. So it'll have expiration dates, and it will be controlled in a way of, this is where you will spend this money. You get this much for groceries, this much for that, and it also will expire on this date. You need to spend it by at that date. So that will be interesting to see if that actually happens. I don't like the idea of that. That's why I also like being in outside of the system in Bitcoin. And when that does happen, and we have this whole new 100-year stretch of whatever the new thing may end up being, that will be interesting to see if that changes that pattern from the past, because the whole economy could be controlled that way.
Yeah, and that's what they want. I mean, they want to control the economy. Like what we just went through, we can see that the Fed, the government, it's controlling this whole cycle. They're like the puppet master, right? They're in and out. They're moving interest rates around. So yeah, we want less of that. We don't want to be controlled. That crypto is an opportunity to do that. Like Petya says, it's not fiat currency. It's outside of the system. So we like that option. It's just going to be interesting in the next 10 years because the government's not going to want to lose that control. They're going to try to roll out their CBDCs. They've started with this Fed Now program, which is kind of a precursor we hear, but it's not a CBDC, but it's probably laying the groundwork. And that's why we have to be vigilant against it, because we're all here because we want less government control over our money. And that's one of the factors, right? And we'll have to see how this thing plays out. The cool thing is Bitcoin just by itself, because I'm a big all of crypto fan, but Bitcoin is just so miraculous that it's just sitting there doing its thing, and it's the one thing that nobody seems to have a big problem with, and it's just doing its thing, growing. So no matter what happens in the regulations and the altcoins and all these different things about crypto and DeFi, which is amazing stuff, I feel pretty good that Bitcoin is just sitting there doing its little thing, and that if all hell breaks loose and maybe the tide goes against these other altcoins and against other crypto, Bitcoin is still there. It's what I invest in most heavily in. I DCA for the long term, and it's just there, and I'm happy. Even though I spend a lot of time worrying and talking and investing in other things, I love the fact that it's still there. So yeah, Petty agrees. The future is Bitcoin. I don't know if it will ever be like our central currency. It could be. We'll see what happens with El Salvador. It's kind of, El Salvador has been hanging out there. It's funny, people still aren't adopting it. Even though it's there, I'm surprised it's actually continued for a couple of years now to be the currency, even though they don't use it. a lot of people don't use Bitcoin there. But again, to me, it's really unique. Like, I don't want to spend my Bitcoin. If I'm an El Salvadorian, the only reason I would is if I had to. Like, my fiat was so much more, and I had to feed my face, and I had some Bitcoin. But why spend my Bitcoin when I think it's going to be worth $100,000? So again, a lot to happen with Bitcoin, but Lightning Network, you've got ordinals on Bitcoin Network. That Bitcoin, the ecosystem is changing. What we think of it is now, I think in 2 years, maybe 5 years, will be completely different. So we'll see. It's good stuff. Fascinating. I'm fired up because I think. We're people that are in this call, you and I or whatever. I mean, we're in the best place right now. It's like we can stock market and the economy and inflation. It's kind of all do its stuff, but we can just go to bed at night just knowing that we got this little backup plan. Now, it's not a guaranteed thing, but it's better than a lot of people that are clueless to crypto, that don't have any other options. They're feeling constrained and worried about the economy. And not that we're not worried about it, but we have crypto. And really, I want everyone to have that feeling. So come on aboard.
Yes, I totally agree. And it comes back to the Dowd statement of watch what they do or follow what they do, not what they say. And what we're seeing are the major institutions getting into Bitcoin. I agree. I think Bitcoin is the future. And Petya has had some great points here. Education, mentorship, community is most important today for the future. Absolutely. Yeah. Because that education right now, I mean, if it came down right now, because we know this is not an event, it's a process, how this is all going to roll out. But let's just say it was an event and it was like, hey, CBDCs over here, they're super easy. You don't have to do much. I'll give you $50 if you come do it. Or, and I'm not saying that that's Worldcoin, but say it was $50 And or over here it's Bitcoin. It's a little bit complicated. Takes a little bit, you got to do some things on it's responsibility, and
Yeah.
which one you want to do. You're going to get
Right.
$2,000 a month over on this side.
Right.
But if you don't really know,
Yeah.
so yeah, education is everything. Great point. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was a great show today. It was
Thanks,
fun.
Petya. It was a good show. It was fun today. Yeah, I think I'm liking this new format that we're doing. But thanks for joining, everybody. This was fun. Thanks, Petya, for joining in. Thanks, Ryan. If you're watching this on replay, please just leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. We'd be glad to cover any different topics in crypto or the economy that you guys want, and we'll go from there. If not, we're gonna bring our own stuff because we just love talking about this stuff. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yes. Thanks, everybody. Great show, and great to hear and see that really cool presentation from you, Scott. That was awesome. And is that on your channel? Is that on your YouTube channel right
Yep,
now?
on my YouTube channel. It's on my YouTube channel now. I got the video out there. It's basically some of that stuff, but it's more me talking. And yeah, I'm on a newsletter too. If you like to read, I'm basically putting this out there together. Crypto for the Rest of Us newsletter. Crypto for the Rest of Us on YouTube channel. So thanks, everybody, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye, everybody.